Stargirl! Episode 6, still in summer school, chapter 6, and we will call chapter 6, since I wasted Eclipso on last week's episode, we're gonna call chapter 6, The Injustice Society. Oh, 2.0. And this episode starts with Yolanda, and for the love of God, why this girl still working at the diner? So like she's working at like I said last week, I don't understand the purpose of putting her in the diner, but then I found out why. The whole purpose of having Yolanda work at a diner is so the fiddler's kid can come into the diner and catch her one-on-one and have a conversation with her. And it was a very creepy conversation. And then because when he was sitting down in the booth, Yolanda came over to him. She recognized him, obviously. And then she was like, oh, do you want to order something? And then he looked up and he was like, I saw your pictures. He's like, we all saw your pictures. And I'm just like, why are we still talking about this? It was not that serious. So then Yolanda was just like, oh, either you gonna order something, you know, like, or you gonna get the hell out. And then he was just like, oh, I'm gonna order your ass along with the rest of the Justice Society, because he was like, we come in, you killed my parents. And then he gets mad and like he storms out the diner, and then Yolanda's just like, oh my, you know. So what they're doing now is Cindy's basically ready to make her move. She's ready to have an all-out assault on the new JSA, but, you know, she's going to use her new ISA to do it. She does not have as many members on her team as, you know, Stargirl's team does, but, you know, that's why they're trying to divide and conquer. So then they send Artemis. Artemis ran up on Beth, and I was like, that was awkward. And then she ran up on Beth, grabbed her by the collar. She was like, I'm gonna beat your ass, bitch, like right after school. And I'm like, what are we doing? Like, this isn't a childhood. Like, this is, well, I mean, they are, I guess it is, because they are high school. It came across like, Artemis' whole thing, it came across like a high school, you know, like when two high school kids beef and they're like, oh, meet me at the flagpole at 3 o'clock. Like, that's what the whole Artemis thing seemed like. And it actually made me laugh, because Beth had no idea what the hell was going on. like Beth legit was like, what is happening? You know, and then Artemis, you know, like she basically told she was going to kick her ass, and then she left. She was like, it's going to be the jock versus like the nerd. So I was just like, okay, so this is going to be very interesting. The only person who actually did not get run up on was Rick, because he was obviously, he was off camera, but we assume he was somewhere feeding Solomon Grundy. And then Cindy, she ran up on Mike, and and, you know, like I was saying from the beginning, I was like, I don't understand like why Mike is on the list. I figured she was going to use Mike to piss off Icicle Jr. and try to get Icicle Jr. to join her Injustice Society. But instead, she was basically, because when she ran up on Mike, she was just like, bro, she was like, I didn't come to you to give you an invitation to the, you know, like to the Injustice Society. She was like, she said, you're just like your dad, like you're a loser, you do nothing. She literally said, she literally said, just like your father, you do absolutely nothing. And I was just like, yeah. I was like, I'm trying to disagree with that, but you know, those be some facts. So then, you know, but then like she snatched him up, and she said the only thing you're good for is bait. So now Courtney, her and Pat, they were at the school and they were looking over the paintings and all the other artifacts that, you know, Eclipso did when he took over the teacher. While they were looking at all the stuff, they saw a painting of the island where the stone came from, which is obviously going to come into play at some point. They saw other paintings of like different things. Then at that point, Icicle Jr. walked in and he was just like, what's going on around here? Where's my teacher? You know, and then they were just like, oh, you know, he's in a mental institution, but, you know, he was like, Courtney and I, like, you know, we volunteered to clean up the mess or whatever. And then, you know, he was just like, oh, like, you know, he was a friend, he was a mentor. And then, you know, I don't know why Pat did this in front of Icicle Jr., but he found one of the paintings that was drawn was the painting of Cindy holding the stone. And he picked up the painting in front of Icicle Jr. and he showed him, and then he showed Courtney. He was like, yo, check out the painting. And then that's when they were just like, shit, you know, like Cindy's the one who has the stone. So then, you know, and then that's when Icicle Jr. was just like, yeah, he was like, Berman, she was in here like yesterday. She was trying to talk to me about my dad or whatever, and I told her to kick rocks. So then they were just like, oh my God. So then, like, you know, they left Icicle Jr. alone. And then that's when Pat and Courtney was just like, they put 2, 3, and 4 together. They were just like, yo, Cindy's the one that has the stone, and she's the one that's controlling Eclipso. She has Eclipso like in her power. So at that point, then like Pat was just like, all right, it's time to, you know, go full out JSA on him. He's like, I'm gonna go get the robot. You go scoop up the team. We'll meet back, you know, at the garage in like an hour, like 1, 2, 3 break. So the two of them split up and they go do what they got to do. Now, when Pat got to the garage to go get his robot, he was met by the Fiddler's kid and he was met by Artemis, and they basically beat his ass. Like, like Cindy was there as well. Like, no, Cindy wasn't there. Yeah, so actually, I don't think Cindy. I forgot Cindy wasn't there. So, but Pat got his ass beat, and there was a moment where he was fighting Artemis, and then he looked like he was actually holding his own, which was funny to me. But then he told Artemis, he was like, yo, I'm not going to fight a teenager. I'm not going to fight a kid. He didn't even know that was Artemis at first. He just thought it was just some random kid, but he was like, I'm not going to fight a kid. And, because of that, but that obviously didn't bother Artemis. Artemis still beat his ass. And then after they beat his ass, the Fiddler was actually going to kill him. And then she was like, no, he's my dad's friend. And I'm like, really? You just beat his ass. you just threw him off the balcony. They said what they really wanted to do was, their plan was to destroy the robot. And that's what they did. Like, they jumped on top of the robot and they dismantled the robot, and they picked the robot apart. Now, this garage guy that's been talking to Pat since the beginning, who's been putting flamethrowers and hacksaws and drills and everything onto the Stripe robot, this is where he comes into play. This is his moment to shine, because he just keeps walking into Pat's garage and just helping himself to the robot and doing whatever. Because he's been working on it for so long, what's going to happen now, he's going to come into the garage, he's going to see the whole thing in pieces, he's going to put it back together, but he's going to add all this new shit, and he's going to make it like bigger and better than ever. So that, mark my words, that's going to happen, especially in the season finale. Then the gang is all together. They find out that Pat's in the hospital. Courtney and Barbara, they're at the hospital. And then that's when Courtney gets the call from Cindy saying that, like, oh, we've got Mike, and come down to the school to get these hands. Otherwise, Mike's going to die. So then, Barbara at that point, she was like, go get Mike and go kick her ass, like Courtney. So Courtney, she gets the gang together. Everybody suits up. They go down for some action, and they go to confront the new Injustice Society. And then at that moment, kudos to Barbara, because Barbara, because remember in the last episode, like, the Shade had gave her his business card, and he was just like, hey, when your children find out information about the Crystal, he was like, call me immediately. So she called him, and then, he was just like, why have you summoned me, Barbara? And then she was just like, oh, she was like, like, my daughter and her friends are going to go confront Cindy Berman and, like, and, like, her friends. And he was just like, oh, he's like, please tell me why I'm supposed to care. And then she was like, oh, because, Sydney, she's the one that actually has the black diamond. She's in control of the black diamond. He was like, oh my. So now it's time to find out what side of the line the Shade is actually really on here. So Courtney and the gang, they show up, Cindy shows up, and it was basically 4-on-3, but then we have to remember Beth can't fight. But one person who can fight, apparently, is Artemis. And here's where I go back to my theory. Artemis's parents, one of her parents has super strength, and they passed it on to her, because she had a one-on-one fight with Rick, who is Our Man, Rick who has the hourglass, which gives Rick super strength for 1 hour. And Artemis beat his ass. Like, there was a point where Rick had grabbed Artemis by the head and smashed her head into a urinal and broke the urinal. He threw her through walls, and she was holding her own. She was fighting back. She was flipping Rick over. She was punching him in the face. And the whole time I'm like, so either the time on the hourglass expired, or this girl has super strength and y'all just don't want to say it. But anyway, so, but Beth did her job. Since Beth's the only one who can't fight, she went to go look for Mike, and she found Mike. After she found Mike, there was a standoff between, like the ISA and the new JSA. And then after that, that's when, like, Eclipso showed up, and then Eclipso took over, and he ended up, manifesting himself back into reality, into human form. And then as soon as he manifested himself into human form, he was like, Eclipso's back, bitches. He was telling like the Injustice, because what happened was Cindy and Courtney were going at it, and Courtney ended up like taking the staff, and she was like firing the staff towards Cindy and Eclipso. Eclipso allowed the staff to touch the crystal, and when it touched the crystal, it shattered it, and that's how he got out, and that's how he broke free. And then, so while he was there, and he was just standing there, and he was just like, oh, it's time for me to reign supreme. That's when we got a visit from the Shade. And then the Shade showed up, he spoke to Mephisto. He was just like, run along, children, the grown-ups are going to have a conversation. And he was just like, oh, your power is the same as mine, Shade. And he was like, no, Eclipso, I will kill you. But then obviously it didn't work. Eclipso, he killed the Fiddler's kid. He dropped Cindy into a dark hole vortex, so Cindy's not dead. She's trapped she's probably in the same place with Dr. Mid-Nite, to be honest with you, who didn't get brought up in this episode. Artemis ran. So so the fact that Artemis got away says to me that she's going to join the JSA before the season's over, which justifies why her parents would come back in season 3 as like regulars. So Artemis ran, Cindy got sucked into a black hole, Fiddler's kid died, so much for the new ISA. The Shade got blasted, but he disappeared, before he died, so the Shade got away. Rick got thrown into a wall, and then Courtney, Beth, and Yolanda just stood there looking stupid. And then Eclipso, he went one-on-one. He tried to go one-on-one with Courtney, and after he went one-on-one with Courtney, the eclipse that was in the sky went away. Because I guess the whole thing with Eclipso is like, he's like a vampire where it's like sunlight kills him. So when he came out, like an eclipse appeared over the moon. When the eclipse started going away, he basically dipped out of the school and he ran off to like God knows where. And then, and in the end credit, we saw that he turned himself into a child. And now Eclipso's out and he's out walking around the world. And he's just like, oh, Eclipso will rise again. The JSA, they're picking up the pieces. They're trying to find out where everybody is. Like they said they don't know what happened to Artemis. They assume Cindy's dead. They assume the Shade is dead, but, they're like on the fence about the Shade. And then they know that the Fiddler's kid is dead. So, then, Rick has like busted ribs. And then everybody's like, they're broken, like they're in pieces. Like Pat wakes up and then he was talking to Mike, and then Mike was like, I'm scared, Dad. And I'm just like, well, no shit. But then Mike, one interesting thing Mike told him, he was just like, yo, Cindy ran up on me and I couldn't do anything to stop her. Now you would think when you say something like that, you would tell your dad like, yo, put me in like kickboxing classes or put me in combat classes, like give me fight training because I need to be able to defend myself. This fool talking about I want a robot. And then Pat was just like, don't worry, Mike. He was like, we'll fix the Stripe robot together. And then he was like, I want my own robot. And I'm like, well, damn, like these entitled sons of, so now the kid wants his own robot. And Pat's going to do it because it's easier for Pat to build his kid, his 15-year-old son, a robot than enroll his ass in some self-defense classes. But Pat did say, he said that I'm going to find a JSA project that you and I can work on together. So the project they're going to work on is Mike getting his own damn robot. We still don't know where the black kid is who got the pink pen, and I thought that Green Lantern's daughter was going to show up. She ain't show up either. So we do have some weapons we can use against Eclipso going forward. So it's not like the whole JSA is like bombed out and defeated, but they are pretty shaken up and they are pretty defeated because they don't know what to do or where to go next. So that was it, and thank you for tuning in. So this was cool. This was very action packed. I like that. Like, I like when the action goes down, when the JSA goes down. I'm a little bummed about the ISA because I really wanted to see a season based on Cindy putting together her own villain team. But now we're not going to get that because, Eclipso done murdered half of them. And where's Jay Garrick? I'm like, Eclipso's out there in the world. Like, we need Garrick. Jay Garrick, who, by the way, is on Earth 1 along with Barry. I said this on my Flash season finale video. Jay Garrick was on Earth 3. Jay Garrick, he met Barry's mom's doppelganger on Earth 3, and the two of them got married. After Oliver Queen rebooted the universe and combined all the Earths into one, with the exception of Stargirl, Doom Patrol, and Swamp Thing, Jay Garrick and Barry's mom, doppelganger mom, merged, and they're a part of Earth Prime. And I don't understand why no one is making a big deal over the fact that the Flash's entire story, the entire reason of the Flash, is based on the fact that his parents are dead. Both of his parents exist on Earth Prime, and we just don't speak about that. But anyway, but like I said, Jay Garrick is supposed to show up, which is going to open up the multiverse again, to let us know that there are still other Earths out there, and Oliver's sacrifice didn't destroy everything. So that was it. I said, thank you for tuning in, and leave your questions, comments, and or concerns. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram. Leave your comments on YouTube as well, because I always read the comments, and I try to respond as best I can, as quickly as I can, as we roll through this superhero goodness. Thank you for tuning in, guys. So till next week, when we find out what happens in the fallout of the JSA and the ISA, look out for that eclipse, and I'm out this bitch!